Just on my computer. All right, so we are days away, right, from the Girls Summit, and I know you're excited. We just met with some of the speakers, and so I wanted to go back in time almost and ask you what inspired the almost like the birth and creation of the Girl Power Summit. This is year 3, so we're growing up.
Well, I can talk about that. Um, so girl power, how it came about is that I was actually at a very really down, really low point in my life. I was diagnosed with anxiety, panic attack disorder, and depression. And that is one of the times where I felt the most loneliest in life. Even though I had my family, it was just a very difficult time because I felt like no one could relate to what I was dealing with. You know, coming from a Caribbean background, it's like you're trained, oh, you'll be okay. You don't need therapy. You don't need this. You'll be okay. Right. Or they'll say, go to God, pray. At least that's one of the things my mom said. She would say, pray. But as a community, it makes a difference as women when we come together and we support each other. It's like the old saying, it takes a community to raise a child. It also takes a community to help us build each other up. And so one day in meditating, it was actually a really difficult time in business. This is another time when I had a really difficult time in business and I didn't know exactly where to go. And then Spirit said to me, girl power. And that's how it was formed.
Just like that. And you listen and you're like, girl power it
Yeah.
is. We're gonna do it.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing because this is something that's probably have been on your heart that you couldn't just let go of because it'll probably come back again. And then knowing other people, I think a lot of time we make the mistake of thinking only us are going through those rough patches or those seasons where of struggles, and then we sort of stay in our bubble versus expanding and saying, okay, who else? How do I create that village for myself? Because the village is not always pre-built, right? Or sometimes we
Yes.
think it's gonna come from people we already know, from family, from friends, and then it's beautiful because that community, as I learned, is expanding. It's global. It's international. So it's not just like where you live, your block, or the people you already know. You could make it bigger, which is great,
Yes.
right? And so you had that vision from the beginning, and now you're seeing that it's growing. The
Yes.
community is growing. So how has it grown? And you yourself, you probably has grown from when you started. Now 3 years in.
Yes. Well, I'll have to say it's definitely not just an expansion for me, but it's an expansion for all the participants. You know, we started this 3 years ago, and of course, you were one of my first speakers the very first time we started. And from hearing from the participants who attend, they really enjoyed, they're really inspired by the topics of conversations from the experts. Okay. Um, but more importantly, it's an opportunity for us to combine 4 areas of life that really matter to us, creating a balance around among the 4 areas, which is your well-being, your relationships, because relationships are important, your career is important, right? Um, and this year, it's like I'm doing something very bold in that we have the very first sex and intimacy therapist who's going to be joining us to talk on that.
I was shocked when
And
I was like, what? That's what I'm like, what? How do you
yes,
approach this? Because a lot of time there's still so many topics that people just avoid, even though it's part of
yes,
life. Or for whatever reason, we sort of tiptoe around it, even though it's affecting people. And so
hmm
I'm glad you were like, let me be bold and just add this to the conversation because again, it's something else other people might be thinking, but it's like, where do I go to ask those questions or have the conversation or even learn from an expert who can really talk
hmm
about it very openly, and then you learn something that can
yeah,
help you elevate your own life, right?
right. And so it's so funny because the reason why I came up with sex and intimacy in this year's conversation, it's because there was something that happened to me in the earlier part of my life. And, you know, I had a really bad experience with my dad when he found out about it,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the area of sex. And you know, even in my relationships, I can see where in the area of sex, I'm not fully self-expressed, right? And it was all because of that one experience that I had with my dad when he found out that I was no longer a virgin.
Hmm.
All right. And that impacted me in my marriage and my other relationships. It's like I really treated it as something it's not to be enjoyed.
Hmm. Yeah.
But more importantly, the reason why I said, let's have a conversation on intimacy and sex, because most often, even out there with the women who are dating, we often collapse the two. Intimacy is one thing and sex is another thing. And we get our hearts broken because we don't understand the game that the men are playing, or like the way men view sex versus intimacy. And it's an opportunity for us to really have a conversation and face that. And you said to me like we're growing, and we are growing because right now we've reached Australia. I never in my wildest dreams envisioned reaching Australia. And we have one of our speakers from Australia who will be joining us.
No, it's amazing. I think even the fact that we've had men as allies, and I think that's another
Mhm.
thing that made the summit in a different position than other places, because a lot of time we having conversation again in a bubble. That might be the word.
Mhm.
And so we're not including each other. So even the idea of like how we are programmed for all the topics that's being explored as women, as men, as others who are exploring those topics. And so a lot of the time is either we just avoid it, which is not good
Mhm.
because they will show up in all your relationships, right? Whether
Yeah.
personal business and other things. And then sometimes I'm surprised a little bit because we're not teenagers, we're not in our 20s. And so for some issues to still be a thing, and it's gonna come up whenever we didn't address it in
Mhm.
a previous, chapter in our life, and even now as we are evolving as people and still becoming, right? We're still becoming who we
Yeah.
are. And for certain things to still be like almost like a secret, like we're not gonna talk about it. So I'm glad that we're growing in more ways than one. And so as we wrap up, I wanted to give people a little taste in terms of what to expect. Because now we're even growing in terms of days. Now we date 4 days of amazing, speakers and what people are going to be learning. So what should our participants and probably some newbies who are coming in for the first time for the summit should be expecting?
Well, definitely, we're shifting the conversation of money in a slightly different way. I'm not sure exactly. Oh, and we have one of our fellow coaches who just joined. Hi, Dr. Joy. Um, I'm actually giving you the title of doctor because you're an expert in your field. Um, no, but welcome. So some of the conversations going back to your question that we're actually going to be discussing is the area of money and preparing for your future. As a society, as women, we don't often think about how are we leaving our children? What are we leaving for for who we're leaving behind if the worst were to happen?
Yeah.
You know, I had a friend who recently went into the hospital and she was going to go into surgery, unexpected surgery. She went into the hospital for one thing and then found out, oh, I need to have surgery. And when it was time, she really didn't know whether or not she had a will. She didn't have a will. She didn't know what a revocable trust was. She didn't know anything of that. So this year, in the area of the money conversation, it's really an opportunity to educate us as a group to ensure that we're ready for if the worst were to happen.
Okay. So that's a great.
Um, yeah. Oh, and then to answer the question, of course, we're bringing back the conversation about dreams because, of course, we're all here for a purpose. We're all here. We came into human form to fulfill on something. And maybe there are some women in their life who like, I'm at a point in my life where I just don't feel fulfilled. And it's just an opportunity for you to get back to what really matters to you, what you really care about, and how you could actually make a difference. Then we have a new coach, Milla. Coach Miller, he's a mindset coach. He's really an amazing, amazing guy. Sometimes I call him up and he straightens me out, because even as coaches, as experts in our field, we go down the little monkey hole sometimes where we start thinking positively, where we think like the world is coming to an end, my life is ending, I feel depressed, and we just need that one person to pull us up. And then we have Dr. Bubbles. I'm like, my God, this woman is an amazing person, Tanya, and yeah, she's my cousin. Okay. She's really, really amazing, taking, a really amazing person in like really having you really take a look at your well-being, how you're taking care of yourself. Okay. And it's not only that, you know, just like me, there is a point in her life, and I'll let her tell her story, but she experienced burnout. And I think no matter what hat you wear as a woman, whether it is you're a mother, you may have a career, whether you're a business owner, you're a husband, you have a husband, you may be taking care of your parents, you may experience burnout. And that's why I specifically designed it in a way where the first day and the last day all comes together, because the last day is that when you're speaking and it's all about creating balance. It's all about creating balance. Yes.
I love it. And so we have some new faces and new coaches. So Dr. Joy, you got a new title. So you're going to be part of this conversation. So I don't know, you want to share what you're going to be talking about with us or sharing?
Yes. How are you ladies doing?
Oh, good.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, Coach Glass, I was like, I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Actually, when I reached out to you last year, I had just launched into speaking, and I felt like that was something God was calling me to do. And so you were one of the first people that I kind of approached and said, hey, are you looking for a speaker? So the fact a whole year later, that seed that was planted, I'm now seeing the fruit of that, is really what a lot of what I'm going to be talking about concerning dreams. So my message here is titled Ask for What You Want. And I'm going to discuss with the ladies, one, why we don't ask for what we want, the reason. And that reason being is that we don't ask for what we want or don't have what we want because we simply won't open our mouth and ask. If I had never reached out to you, Coach Glaze, gotten out of my comfort zone, I know we went to Grace together. That was years ago, but that wasn't something that we had an ongoing relationship. And so me reaching out to you was me opening my mouth and asking, hey, do you need someone? And because I opened my mouth and asked for what I wanted, here I am a year later walking that out. I also want them to get very emotional, because when it comes to dreams, you have to be emotional about your dreams. Oftentimes when we don't see things happening or the plan isn't going the way that we want it to go, we'll start to numb ourselves. We'll start to say, oh, it's okay. If something doesn't happen, it's okay. There'll be other opportunities. Will there? How do we know?
Yeah.
How
Well,
do we know?
yes. And Coach Coach Joy, that's the other thing too. I do dream building coaching, meaning I help my clients discover what it is they really want. And by you reaching out, that was a big step. And of course, not only do we not ask for what we want, it's you also want to be prepared for what you're asking for, right? And so even along that year ago when you reached out to me to be a speaker, right? I remembered you because I am committed to every woman literally lifting up and rising. Because when we all rise and we're living our purpose and we're living our dreams, I solely believe the world will be a better place for all. So I just want to say thank you for accepting the invitation. It really means a lot. And then really quick, Dr. Marie, is there anything else for you? Any other questions you have for me?
This is all going to be included. And so I'm looking forward to seeing you both in a few days. You know, it's like we're talking about a year, and sometimes some seeds, as you know, germinate much quicker than others, right? And some people think the harvest is going to take 5 years. Sometimes it's a few months, sometimes it's a few
Mhm.
days, depending on what
Yeah,
it is you're
yeah.
planting. So you just said my two favorite thing, plant the seed, or three, planting seeds, which something I love also talking about, because sometimes people are asking later for things they never planted. So you like when you
Mhm.
plant that seed. So I'm grateful you even asked, and then you received, and to continue asking regardless of what happened, right? And so now you get to share your gift with a global audience who may also been looking for you and what you have to share, and helping them reach their dreams. So it's a beautiful synergy. I love it, in terms of Coach Glass creating that platform and others coming on and being willing to share and grow and keep planting those seeds, but also showing others how to do it, because sometimes we know
Yeah.
how to do it and there's somebody else who's like, I don't know. And so we get to be that guide
Yeah.
and be that coach, leaving our message. So thank you to you both. So I'm going to be sharing this with my audience. Go ahead, one final word.
I want to know what you're going to be talking about this year because I know you're the planting seeds queen,
Yeah.
right?
So, well, you already had your topic. I was like, creating balance. And so I have to think of a way where we can have a conversation to see what exactly is getting in the way of creating balance, right? Just like success, you have to define, what does that mean? Because my balance may look very different for another person, and especially as we get older, it's going to be very different, like what is in your life and what you're creating, and for you to be able to know you can design it, right? So I can't, sometimes people are looking for a formula, like for example, if you think of it as a garden, my garden will never look like yours. We could plant the same thing, it would never look, my balance or my harmony will never look like yours, right? So you get to create it the way you want to, the way you dream of it to be. um and so that's the piece where I'm still thinking about sometimes, by asking the questions of people in terms of what has gotten in the way of them being in balance. And sometimes it could
Mhm.
be very different, it could be out of alignment, so people might call it different ways, but I think at the core of it, I just want people to be able to have a life that's not so stressed. I think all of us are stressed in some shape or form. And so thinking
Mhm.
about removing those weeds that put us out of balance. And then how do we get to recreate that? Because you can always create it. You get to choose what you want that life to be. So I'm still working and thinking like, how do I present it? There are some people returning, new people coming on board, but based on what questions I'm hearing, questions people are asking, just leaving room for me to hear more from our audience in terms of sort of like what are the challenges to creating balance, and to see how I can help them sort of get some clarity, beyond the summit. Because sometimes people come and they hear the thing, but I want them to also apply it, not just like, this is great, I get all the
Uh-huh.
tips and the steps, and then they go back to the same chaos they came in from. So I really want them to practice what we share with them.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm looking forward, there is no practice here. So I'm really looking forward to your contribution. As always, you've been with me for 3 years, and I just acknowledge you for who you are. And I really love your spirit. So thank you.
Thank you. So I'm excited as well. I'm still excited, just like you want. So we'll wait and see. And I'm looking forward to like all the things I'm gonna be